An EV is good only for the city, where the diesel engines will soon be banned and a petrol engine is too thirsty on the motorway. Do you need two cars now? Well, if you have €85,000 lying around, you only need one. For example, the Mercedes-Benz E Class 300DE, which is a diesel plug-in hybrid. Before you explode, let me explain. Due to more stringent environmental regulations, all car manufacturers who want to sell cars in Europe have to reduce emissions across the model range, otherwise they will have to pay fines. When I say they, I actually mean we, because it's us who will pay a higher sticker price. It's easy to predict most clients will choose a less expensive car over the more expensive one. And this includes things like TCO or the total cost of ownership, which also includes things like cost of fuel and fees to enter zero emissions zones. So it's electrify or die. And electrification is what Mercedes promises all models will have their hybrid or electric variants by 2022. A word of clarification, in this review I will focus on the hybrid powertrain in this Mercedes-Benz. If you want to find out more about the E Class, watch my separate review by clicking the link in the upper right corner of the screen or in the description below. And now briefly about different types of hybrids. We have mild hybrids, full hybrids and plug-in hybrids. The first are mainly to give you an extra boost and allow shutting the engine off completely during coasting. Full hybrids are something Toyota developed for many years, but they are also available in other brands. Here, the internal combustion engine and the electric motor supplement each other to optimize fuel economy and emissions. So you can take off on electricity, but the engine will kick in when you reach a certain speed or accelerate harder. Kinetic energy recuperated during braking or coasting recharges small batteries. In case of plug-in hybrids, the car can drive several dozen kilometers in zero emissions mode. A larger battery is charged from the electric socket or via the engine, for example, during long motorway drives. Several dozen kilometers should be enough for your zero emissions zone drives, otherwise the car can behave like a full hybrid. The Mercedes-Benz E300DE is interesting because it is a diesel plug-in hybrid. Most hybrids work with petrol engines, and the only diesel hybrids I can think of are Peugeot RXH and 3008 Hybrid 4, the 2012 model, not the recently announced PHEV, and back in the day Volvo experimented with the diesel PHEV in the previous generation of the V60. The Mercedes-Benz E300DE, long name, is powered by a 194 horsepower diesel, the same as in the E220D I tested a couple of years ago. And there is also an electric 122 horsepower motor. The power almost adds up and you get a total output of 306 horsepower and 700 newton meters of torque, 300 more than in the diesel. The time from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour drops from 7.3 seconds in E220D to 5.9 seconds in E300DE. The electric motor is powered by a 13.5 kilowatt-hour battery living in the boot. For comparison, one of the first mass-produced EVs, the Mitsubishi i-MiEV, had a 16 kilowatt-hour battery. The i-MiEV was supposed to have a range of about 160 kilometers, but as far as I remember, I was able to achieve about 100 kilometers. Taking into account the early stages of EV technology and my lack of knowledge about EVs and how they're supposed to be driven, I suppose today I could have achieved a bit more. The E Class PHEV weighs almost twice as much as the IMEF and has a claimed electric range of about 50 kilometers. This is how much I achieved in the Prius PHEV when I tested it during the summer. I'm recording this review late in autumn with temperatures only slightly above freezing. When I unplugged the car, it displays a low 30-something kilometers range. Driving it very conservatively through the city, on a Sunday afternoon I managed 31 kilometers in EV mode. On a normal day in average Warsaw city traffic, the range is below 30 kilometers. In both cases, the car was preconditioned, so I didn't waste energy on heating the car. Instead of the claimed 19 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers for the saloon, the estate uses about 20 kilowatt hours, the 300DE used about 30 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. The average fuel economy figure of 1.6 liters per 100 kilometers, which Mercedes claims, is assuming you drive the entire 50 kilometers on electric power before the engine kicks in. And then the remaining 50 kilometers should be in hybrid mode, where the engine will shut off periodically. And then around 2 liters per 100 kilometers is achievable. After a whole day of driving, I managed to get less than 30 kilometers before the engine kicked in, and then another 20 or so crawling in traffic in hybrid mode. Of course, if I needed to drive a couple of dozen kilometers on the motorway to get to the office, which is in the middle of a green zone, or if I needed to do longer business trips to cities where there are stringent emissions limits, this car would make sense. Diesel on motorway, electric motor in the city, and I could recharge on the motorway or in the office. By the way, charging from a regular 230 volt socket takes 5 to 6 hours, and from a Type 2 sockets about 90 minutes. The Merc has an onboard charger which can take up to 7.4 kilowatts. You can drive the car in one of 4 modes: hybrid, electric, battery save and charge. So, in order to maintain charge for city driving, you can use the battery save mode on the motorway, or you can charge the batteries between cities. It's not the most efficient way to charge, but if there is no other way, it is what it is. How is it to drive? It's very quiet and comfortable. It stops being quiet once the diesel kicks in. It sounds very rough. Probably the fact that it's cold most of the time doesn't help. I never managed to drive this car long enough for the engine to be properly up to temperature. This is probably why petrol engines are preferred in hybrid systems. On the plus side, if you want to give it the beans, the E300DE goes like the clappers. You're not suddenly pushed into your seat like an EV's, but thanks to the 9-speed hybrid transmission, sorry, it's a bit slippery today, so I have to pay attention. The acceleration feels relentless. It just keeps going and going. You can barely feel the gear shifts. Now, the problem is that when you get this car up to speed, it weighs 2 tons, and then you may have to stop. Now, if you do an emergency brake on an empty road like this, there is no drama really, it doesn't skid around or anything, but if there was an obstacle in front, I think I would calculate in my head very quickly how each of those extra 300 kilograms extends my braking. Oh yeah. Instead of speeding, better use one of many driver aids, which do not just semi-autonomous driving but also help you achieve greater efficiency. For example, in eco mode, the car uses sat-nav data, you don't even have to input a destination, and suggests you take your foot off the accelerator as you approach a junction, a turn, a speed limit, or if there is a car in front. The so-called haptic accelerator pedal resists your foot, which makes you a more efficient driver. There are also suggestions to lift off, shown on the HUD. All this comes at a price, and I'm not talking only about the €55,000 this test car costs, with options. The boot is smaller because of the battery. It's not terrible, but you lose almost 200 from the 540 liters. Packing bigger suitcases will be a challenge, so if you need more space, there is always the E300DE Estate. On the upside, the hybrid powertrain doesn't take up any space inside the cabin. It is as spacious in the back and in the front as in the regular E Class. Generally speaking, the hybrid Merc differs very little from its ICE counterpart. Inside, you can only tell it's a hybrid because of the hybrid mode button and slightly different graphics on the virtual instrument cluster, which take into account driving in electric mode and energy recuperation. From the outside, there is only the E300DE model marking and a flap on the rear bumper. Underneath it is the charging socket. I would like a little light there because it's hard to aim at night. Also, I'm not sure if forcing me to reverse park to charge is the best solution. Charging posts are sometimes strangely placed and charging cables tend to be short.
I understand who this car is for. For someone who lives outside the city and doesn't like or doesn't have access to public transport and who needs to travel long distances to eco-friendly cities. This combination of diesel and electric motor makes sense, at least on paper. I just don't know how many people are out there who need this kind of thing. And do you think that a plug-in hybrid is the way to go? Is it better than EV? And what about diesel hybrids? Let me know in the comment section below. Subscribe for more of my down-to-earth, sarcastic and possibly mildly amusing car reviews. Don't forget to share and subscribe, hit the notification bell to be notified about every time I post new reviews every Friday. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.